Welcome to Drum and Drummer, a podcast focused on drums, drumming and drummers. I'm George Pickering and that's Ben Winty, and we are both professional drummers in this business we call music. So stick around and join us as we pass the time whilst trying to stay in time. Sorry, you look like you're about to say something.
No, just for some reason my brain stopped working.
That's okay.
Boom! It's Drum and Drummer. George, all right.
Sorry, what was that first word?
Boom! I just went straight in with a boom. Don't know why.
I like that. Yeah.
Don't ask why.
Well, I did. No,
Just
I asked
go
what
with
you
it.
said.
Yeah.
I'll go with it. Boom. Explosions. Are we ready for another explosive episode?
Big time. Big time. Episode 60.
Oh, hello.
Rattling through.
Yeah.
Yeah. You okay?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm trying to think what 60 equals as a number. Used to be an age you could retire at, I think.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, not anymore.
Those days are long gone.
Yeah. Will we ever retire?
No. Still be doing Victoriano when I'm in my 60s. And funnily enough, well, we've just been inquired about doing a gig in March 2025. I mean, talk about booking in advance.
That's mental. So right now, it's January 2023.
Yeah, this is over 2 years away.
You're 37. Your birthday is in March.
Is it May?
25. May. Oh, I always think it's March. I always get the MA months mixed up.
So it would just be a couple of months before my 40th birthday.
Which is mental.
And I just don't think they should book us and I'm one of the younger ones.
Yeah. Is it Victoriana?
Yeah.
Christ. Neil will be 40 by then.
Neil will be well into his 40s.
Well into his 40s.
Into his 40th year. And you just think, oh, Christ. I mean...
Well, because I remember you once saying that you think by the time you get to 40, maybe you'll rein it in with the function gigs. You know, you want to get your weekends back at some point.
Yeah. That kind of... It ties in with a lot of other things in my life that 2025 is a year where things will maybe change up a bit.
Yeah.
And the thought of starting a set with Oh Boy. Just like, oh really?
My love and my kisses.
Oh, God.
And you're 40. You're 40 hearing that. And you're going, I could be home right now, you know?
Yeah.
Instead, I'm in wherever it is.
I mean, there will legitimately be professional wedding bands 20 years younger than us.
Yeah.
You know, that they... And you almost want to say to them, don't book us. We're dead inside now.
Yeah.
We hate it now. And also as well, it's like, fucking who knows who's going to turn up at that gig? Because we could be dead.
Oh, what, you mean the band?
Yeah.
I thought you meant the wedding party, because also 2 years' time, you could have a whole new set of friends by then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's people I made friends with 2 years ago. I'm not friends with them anymore. You know what I mean? If you invite them, I mean, maybe send your... Here's a tip of wedding advice. I haven't been married, far from it. But send your invites close to the date, I reckon. Because friendships, very volatile, especially if you're a friend of mine. You know what I mean? I can go off the rails like that. But we do have a guest today.
We do.
What an intro into the guest. Lawrie Miller.
Yeah.
Sorry, you look like you're about to say something.
No, just for some reason my brain stopped working.
That's okay. I'll take it for a minute. Lawrie Miller is a Brighton-based session drummer. I tell you, why even explain it? These are the things we asked him. Who are you? What do you do? Do you like being a drummer? Etc.
Yeah.
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 So we don't need to do an intro to him.
No, let's find out about Lawrie Miller together. Yeah. Here we go.
Right. Well, I reckon let's start with how we met, because I've only recently met you the other night at your gig.
Hello, man. Thanks for coming.
It's a pleasure. Well, I wanted to see your band Barbara for a while, and Dean put me on the guest list, and how could I refuse? And it was great. And I knew of you because Dean's always, singing your praises. And I heard that you share the studio with Pat Garvey. So I was, excited to meet you. But I have to say, the funniest part about it was within 2 minutes of meeting you, you were sort of performing a drum rudiment on my shoulder, explaining something
I
to me,
was, I was, I was.
which I just thought was like pure. I don't know if it's a drummer thing. I don't know if guitarists are like this, but I feel like if you meet another drummer anywhere at a party or a gig or something, and you go, oh, okay, this guy is serious about it as well, and you sort of click on things, it's like the comfortableness to just go,
Yeah, no,
I
I
got to
felt
show
it
you
too, man.
this.
I think it's just because I knew it, what you were describing to me about your lessons with Pat was exactly what I'd been through. It was
Yeah.
everything I'd been through, maybe I want to say 3 years ago.
Mm.
And I know his teaching quite well. And I mean, you've been here, man. That page 33 sheet never leaves
Yeah.
that music stand. And
Yeah.
all of my students are just like, what is that? Why is it always like? And if anyone doesn't know what I'm referring to, it's just like a 16, I believe, 16 bar phrase of notation. And Pat's never told me how many ways he can play it, but I guarantee there's about 100 different ways he can read that one sheet of music. And
Yeah, let's explain what page 33 is, because Ben, have you heard of this before? So
I have not.
do you want to explain it, Laurie, or
I
I feel like you'd know it
thought
better
this
than
might
I?
come up. I've actually forgotten the name of the book that it come. Do you know the name of the book that it comes
No,
from?
I can't remember the book. No.
So originally it comes from a book, and yeah, I've definitely forgotten that name. But the reason I loved it, and I'm still discovering different ways of playing it. And in fact, the head of drums at the teaching company I work at, so now named as Create Music, he's had lessons with Bom Armstrong as well, who
Yeah.
originally taught Pat. And it all, I believe it all kind of stems from Bob originally. But yeah, you can just read this sheet of music and it in so many different ways. And I think that just correlates really well to real life drumming
Mm.
because 9 times out of 10, you're probably playing something that's on the ballpark of what someone wants.
Yeah.
Because you know, if you're in the seat, you've been hired for the right reasons. But it's always like, oh, can you just play, you know, semiquavers on the ride in your right hand instead?
Yeah.
Or can you give me a left foot on 2 and 4 instead? Or on top of what you're already doing? So you're almost halfway there, always halfway there, especially with studio work, but they just want something else added.
Mm.
And I feel like page 33's got that, whereby you're always playing the same thing, but just in different ways. And that's exactly what I was tapping on the shoulder. I hope that I got that across, where
Yeah.
you can read it as semiquaver accents, or you can read it as triplet accents. You can fill in the gaps and play it as roll rudiments. You can play it as paradiddles.
There's so much scope to it. I think we'll put a picture up on the Instagram when we put this out. And but I remember the thing I learned about it initially was because we had a lesson called jazz drums at BIM, which is almost like an add-on lesson. I don't know if they still do it, but
yeah, I had the same one.
oh, did you have the same one? And
Yeah.
I loved it because I hadn't really explored jazz and still haven't really. And page 33, I remember learning that it was like every comp you do, jazz comping. So with the left hand on the snare, every variation you can think of is on page 33. And I remember that blowing my mind. I was like,
Yeah,
but it is the case.
And it's amazing that I think the second lesson I had with Pat, or maybe the first lesson, he said, "You're gonna want to get that laminated, by the way." And I was just like, "Yeah, cool, man." And like I genuinely said that to him. I was like, "Are you for real?" And he was like, No, seriously."
Yeah.
You know, 6 months, a year later, still looking at the same, you know, lines. And I'm like, okay, maybe I really should get this laminated. And now I even sat down 2 days ago, and it's just such a useful tool whereby you can have books upon books upon books of things to study. And it's so overwhelming. And, you know, social media is overwhelming. You're like, what on earth am I supposed to be practicing? Whereas you've just got this one, and please do post a photo because might not mean much to people, but when they see it, they'll really get it. You just have this one A4 sheet of paper, and you know that day you might say to yourself, "I want to work on my bass drum," and I don't know if you've done this, but you can just play quavers on the hats, 2 and 4 on the snare, and just read the thing on your bass drum.
Yeah,
and there you go. You've got like boom, 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 da, boom, boom, da, boom. You can go through the whole page and then bump up your BPM.
Yeah.
You know, change your right hand to semiquavers. Yeah, play one E and play one ander.
Yeah. Well, what you said there was perfect. It is like there is that feeling of what am I meant to be practicing, which is
Mm.
why, I found lessons so important just for that, going, well, I don't need to, I don't know, search for every drum book and try and play everything. It's like just focus on one thing. And I think that's what page 33 is perfect for.
I got to see this page 33.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking, have you got the copy now, Lawrie? And then
Yeah,
so Ben quickly.
it's not there.
That is classic.
I kid you not, every single day it's on my stand. I will ask him how dare he move it this one time that I want it.
He knew.
I've got it on my iPad, so I'll send it over to you.
I feel we could talk page 33 forever, but I kind of want to delve in first to your bands you play with. So Barbara, because you're an actual member, that isn't a session thing.
No, it is actually a session gig.
Oh, is it a session thing?
Yeah.
Oh, fair. Is it the same with Dean then?
Me, Dean, and Jack support Barbara, as in we support the two brothers, so as supporting musicians, I suppose. But John and Henry on keys, John's the singer, and they both sing together, as you saw. Yeah, it's their gig, so we're all hired guns essentially for the brothers, and that gig came about 3 years ago. There's a manager in Brighton called Julian Dean, lovely dude, and I think they just got in touch with him because they were originally at university, came back from uni. Their family live in Brighton, and yeah, when they came back to Brighton and finished their degree, they just needed musicians. So, and I've always been in touch with Julian through my very first uni band, which were called Glass City Vice. So we played together for ages, and Julian looked after another band called The Excerpts, who are still going.
Yeah, I know The Excerpts. Yeah,
brilliant rock and pop band.
They're great,
lovely dudes as well. And just Julian just one day said, these guys are looking for a drummer, you should go have a rehearsal with them. And as soon as I heard the music, as you heard the other day, it's just wild.
I love it. The way I described it, and I mean this in the best way, it's sort of like the feeling, but more going on. Yeah. And I never know if that's offensive, because some people don't like the feeling.
No, not at all, man. And amped up the feeling. There's Keen, there's bits of ABBA, there's bits of Queen, 10cc gets mentioned a lot. And you could put their music in a musical and it wouldn't be out of place.
No.
It's really dramatic in a good way. Mika gets referenced a lot as well, actually.
Yeah.
And the producer they're working with a lot is a guy called Paul Steele, who is also on Julian Dean's roster, I believe still on his roster, for like publishing reasons and stuff like that. And his sound, he's done some work with Mika, so he's heavily involved with getting the production right. Once we've all recorded our parts, and it comes out as this just crazy operatic pop.
It is brilliant. To say that, that gig was a support slot, it was very much like the singer. He had that crowd, it was great to see.
Yeah, John, and that's the thing, you can, when it first came to me and I listened to it, I just knew, like, there was something about it. You always do, if you know, like, from listening to something, like, the first time, you're just like, this is wicked, this is going to be great. And then got in the room with them, could obviously see that it was real, and because I'd only been sent demos, so it can sometimes be different in the rehearsal room. And they had it. They're so talented, and people ask me, like, how do they write like that? Why do they write like that? And then you go around their like family house, and it's like all the music they sound like is just plastered on the walls. All your old 60s 70s records, it's completely authentic, and it's just what comes out because that's what they've listened to their whole lives or have been fed by their parents. And it's just brilliant. And for me as a drummer to play on it, I think I may have mentioned to you the other night, but about 6 songs in the set are on metronome and backing track and click. So there's sections that will go from certain time signatures, like there's a lot of 3/4 to 4/4, and there's usually like a 4-bar click break, so it keeps you on your toes. There's some like halftime shuffles in there, and then there's just like 4 to the floor pop as well. So
Yeah. Well, that's what
Hilarious.
I was gonna mention. There was a lot of times where, yeah, it would just completely change, not just time signature, but like the tempo. I felt,
Mm,
you know, and I
yeah,
was just like, where's this going? But it was
yeah.
great. You know, you do like a fill and then suddenly you're into a different bit. And yeah, and I was talking to your brother about it and we're saying that's a tricky gig. You know,
Mm,
that's like it's not just, you know, stick to 120 BPM for the whole
yeah.
song and then that's it. It was yeah, it was up and down, but it was great.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
brilliant. And whenever they bring in new music, it's never, you can learn it in the car on the way there, and by 2 minutes, you know the rest of the song. I'm not saying I do that sometimes, but
We've all done that. It's
yeah,
okay.
yeah. But yeah, it's never like that. It's always. It reminds me of learning old Beatles songs. Like
Mm,
you feel like when you first listen to it, they're easy. Like
mm.
we've all done wedding gigs. If you get a Beatles song for a first dance, you'll only ever overlook it once, and that's the time because you like messed up. The
Yeah,
next time you get a Beatles song for a first dance, you'll kind of go, right, okay, this sounds easy, but actually when you write it on paper, chances are there's like 2 4 bars, or something will go into 6 8, or this
yeah,
this verse phrase will be 6 bars long instead of 4 bars long. They're always extending verses, and Barbara are very much like that, where you think you've heard the whole song and then it will just go on and then on, and like in a good way, it will develop so nicely. And yeah, just again, as a player, I just love it because it keeps you on your toes. It's great.
well, speaking, yeah, of playing live with them, am I right in saying you did a little tour recently, a support tour,
Yeah,
playing
we
some quite big
supported
places?
we supported John and Henry's all-time favorite band, actually, called the Divine Comedy.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, it was a big O2 Academy tour, but for that style of music, it wasn't your run-of-the-mill O2 Academy shows. It was Birmingham Symphony Hall. It was Liverpool Philharmonic.
mm,
Um, every venue was of that ilk, that was like built for orchestras, because I guess the headline band Divine Comedy are of that genre as well, where they're writing for these auditoriums, and the
mm,
sound is written, yeah, for those stages. And yeah, I guess it just wouldn't have. Now that I've been on the tour, and I kind of think like, why didn't you do, Brixton Academy or something
mm.
like that? They did London Palladium, which we went on, unfortunately. But you can kind of see why they went for those style of venues, those operatic, big theatre-esque venues, instead of your academy shows. And
Yeah,
Barbara very much fitted in with that sound. We went down incredibly well every night. We were the only support band, so it was literally like, and yeah, Divine Comedy is so lovely to us in the sense that it was just like, put your stuff here. We're not going to cover up any of our stuff. Like, it's all going to stay on show. Drums can just go right in the middle of this huge stage, and it was like, if you want, there's 2 hours a night to sound check. It wasn't like
nice.
you're being pushed off and rolled on and here's the main band, and you're kind of brushed to one side. It was, yeah, you've got all this time in the world. Dressing rooms were lovely, and all the venues were lovely, the staff and everyone was great. So
Well,
that was really a dream tour for both myself, the band, and the brothers John and Henry. There was the opportunity as well to do Europe.
mm,
And I should say that me and Jack, the bassist, are in another band called Noble Jacks,
mm.
who are equally busy, if not more busy than Barbara, and would have completely clashed.
Yeah,
I was going to ask, as a session player, how do you find prioritizing different projects? Because obviously you want to be
Yeah,
part of them and be part of them going well.
yeah,
There's going to be incidences, like you just said, where there's clashes or things. How do you navigate that situation as a session drummer?
yeah. It's tricky, and so. Speaking of teaching, I look after. I say 65. It could even be more now. That there's a good about 65 kids that I look after each week, and juggling that along with the touring and the playing can sometimes come to a head. And I think you just got to make sure that everyone in the band is kind of has got their calendars on lock, and you're kind of all cool if, like, Noble Jacks have got 3 rotating drummers that I can think of. So that's great. it was funny when you mentioned the backing track stuff the other night for Barbara. I did in the back of my head, although I didn't say it, was thinking, yeah, they'd be really screwed if like I was suddenly really ill. And, you know, it hasn't come to that point yet. Or like it, you know, it may have come to a head if they really did want to push going for that Europe leg. But yeah, I just think it's up to everyone in the band to either have a dep on hand. Even Jack, actually, the bassist, he had a shoulder operation because he dislocated his shoulder playing football, as you do. And he luckily had a backup. So for a few shows, we had someone else on bass for Barbara and Noble Jackson. Yeah, I think just as long as everyone in the band is kind of knows that you are that session player, because there can sometimes be a big overlap with like you're not in the band, but there's also not a huge amount of money here to pay you as a session player. So can you kind of still be a session player, but also we're going to get a little bit annoyed if you dep out these gigs? Well, it doesn't really work like that. You have to, you know, say at the start, you know, do you want to be in a full-time band member, in which case there's all of this kind of copyright to deal with, or are you okay with me just being a session player? You pay me every night and I'll make sure that I'm on hand, but if I can't be, I'll also be doubly sure that whoever fills my seat is going to do a good job. And I think that's just the way it goes, really.
I kind of want to just quickly stay on Noble Jacks, because I saw it's on your website. You played some, I mean, notable places.
Should we go with that? Noble places.
That was a hard sentence to say. I was trying to say notable places with Noble Jacks.
Yeah.
But Brixton Academy, and there was a few others. Were that support tours or?
Yeah, another support tour. This was pre-COVID. Noble Jacks are wicked, by the way. That's another just great band that
Yeah, how would you describe their sound? Because I looked them up. It was sort of
well, if you speak to the singer, he likes to say it's stadium folk. Which
nice.
You know, take from that what you will, but
yeah,
I would call it fiddle folk.
Yeah.
And of the stadium ilk, because you know there's references of Frank Turner,
right,
and various other big folk artists. The Levelers gets mentioned a lot.
Levelers, yeah.
Are you in this band or are you session?
Another session gig.
Another session gig. Cool.
Yeah. So I'm actually, you know, I was post BIM or post uni was definitely a band kind of guy, and that was my thing. And then kind of merged into sort of session gigs, I suppose. But they're bandy session gigs, you know. I like that. I really like people and being around the same people, and you get a nice family vibe from it. It's not like a conveyor belt of musicians coming in each tour. You know, the bands I play for is the same people all the time, and I love that because it does feel like a band, but it's not. It's a session gig, and so Noble Jacks that was supporting the Dead South,
right?
Huge Canadian, and I hadn't heard of them before this tour. I'm not afraid to say, and huge Canadian folk band, massive. You know, they sold out Brixton Academy, so they're doing well, and they're from Canada, so in Canada they do even bigger venues. Weird one really. It was Jack in Barbara, played for them, and he lived with at the time the guitarist, and they were in a similar kind of position with their drummers, where it was like, you know, session gig, but people weren't massively available, and they like to have a number one. I know we've kind of mentioned about, you know, are you in the band or not, but they do like to have a number one. However, it's totally cool if you need to dep it off, which is what I was saying. Like, that just conversation needs to be had. So they were looking for a new number one, and kind of the number 2, 3 guys were getting busier. So I still remember it actually. I was running a park run, as you do.
Yeah. Which one? Hove or
Hove?
Yeah. Because there's 5 in Brighton, which is mental.
Whoa! Fuck.
Yeah. Did you know that?
It's too many.
Yeah. There's Hove. Sorry to just.
What's the best? Is Hove the best one?
I'd say Hove's.
Have you done them all, George?
No, I haven't done any, but I'm just aware of them. We'll go. What are you doing Saturday?
Why don't we do that?
Yeah, we'll go Hove Park Run Saturday. There's one by me in this park area. I'm Kemptown, Preston Park, Hove. Feel like there's one around the low. I know there's 5, which just seems like a lot.
So there's the promenade, isn't there? There's Hove Prom. So that's 3. Yeah. Oh God. Anyway,
We'll put that on the Instagram alongside page 33. The
Yeah,
5
yeah, yeah.
park runs of Brighton.
yeah.
Anyway, so you're doing a
So
park
yeah, I was
run.
doing a park run, and the guitarist was mentioning it. Just it might be his gig coming up. Noble Jackson and are looking for a drummer. I was like, okay, sweet. And
Was
then
this while you were running? Sorry.
yeah, this is
Okay, cool.
whilst we're going around. Yeah, cool. Sign me up. Obviously, I'm there. And another lap went by. Oh yeah, so it might be Brixton Academy. I was like, no, you're kidding me. He's like, yeah, ends up like either ends up at Brixton or starts at Brixton or whatever. And I was thinking, okay, that'd be sweet, like sign me up kind of thing. And then just went from there. Went round. So Will, the singer's got a little studio. Went round his rehearsal. Went really well, and it was just within the blink of an eye. I think it actually, I say started there. I think it started at Vicar Street in Dublin, which is equally as big. 2,500, 3,000 people. And I think we've had maybe 2 or 3 rehearsals. And it was just that moment of just, click the band in and I hope you've done your homework sort of thing. And that tour, we still talk about it as a band now that, that was kind of the start of them doing much bigger things. But then typically this was pre-COVID and they were going to snowball off the back of that tour and do a big UK run of their own, which we still did after COVID, but sadly the momentum had been lost a little bit. It was still great and people showed up and whatever, but you know what it was like after COVID. Like not many people wanted to come out, and ticket sales have been sold, but they'd not been reminded about, and so it was a little bit thin on the ground. But that tour was an amazing run of shows, and it was probably for me, if I'm being honest, the first sign of like a bigger O2 Academy tour. Like I'd done shows in the past and done big one-off gigs and bigger festivals and stuff, but I think that was about 14 dates and they were all over 3,000 a night, and that was kind of the first run for me on that level, I suppose. And as a drummer before that, you always are rehearsing and practicing and training for these moments, and as you get older you do often think, oh shit, like am I good enough for that? Will I be able to withstand if that comes my way? Am I going to be able to show up? And you 100% do. It's that I just remember playing Brixton and looking out to my girlfriend and mum and brother and stuff, and just like we got this is sick.
It
was brilliant.
Was it quite a level up then? Was before that, before you did the tour of, was there
because it was all original stuff. And you do Academy 2s and stuff like that and smaller runs. And my originals band after uni would do a couple of low level tours. But like I say, that was the big one for me.
Definitely.
From a playing point of view, was there anything that sort of surprised you about jumping up to those sort of venue sizes, or anything you wasn't expecting in terms of drumming? Or did it feel quite natural once you started?
Yeah, it felt quite natural, but I think what you need to understand is those stages are massive. You don't get much of a sound check, so you never fully relax. But also I just think, I'm kind of speaking of someone like of myself prior to this happening. I wish someone would have told me like that the stages are that big that not everyone can always hear you because you're so far away. And you now realize why everyone's on IEMs and in monitors and also run to a click as well, because Noble Jacks, by the way, do not, like, they're so far removed from Barbara. Like Will on fiddle rips the fiddle like mad and is super quick, and every show's different, speeding up, slowing down, and it's great because it's that folk energy. But what I'm saying is if you're so far away from that and they can't hear you, I think that was the biggest shock, was going out onto those huge stages and just being like, shit, like, are we in time? That's a real scary thing if you're playing in front of 3,000-4,000 and wondering if your band can hear your bass drum, and fiddle folk is boom chat boom chat boom chat boom chat, so that's what's driving the whole song. So I think that's one thing. The other thing that came to mind was sticks as well. If we want to go really geeky, I actually upped my stick size. I went to a 5B because again, the room's so big, and I was playing 7/8s before, and I just was getting no weight out of them. Felt like I was holding on, really clutching at these sticks, and didn't get as far as RSI, but it was definitely just a bit like achy. And the Noble Jacks music is fast, very fast, and I just needed that weight to help me relax. And you can throw the stick into the ride cymbal a bit more, and you don't have to hold on so hard or throw it into your rim shots on your snare, and you just know that the stick's going to take all that weight and it's not going to ricochet into your elbows or your wrists.
Well, was it weird also when you, after doing that tour, when you then did smaller gigs, did it feel like, God, this is a small room now? Yeah, this is shit. Bollocks, not Brixton Academy.
Yeah. No, the only thing you notice is the dressing room. So,
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm joking. Yeah, but everyone always says like the smaller gigs are way more nerve-wracking because you can see everyone. You look out onto some of those academy venues, and definitely the Barber kind of auditorium shows, like the Philharmonic and Birmingham Symphony, and you can't see anyone because the lights are on you. It's completely blackout. So I would say, yeah, and honestly, the most nerve-wracking gigs I've done with my old band used to play on a Saturday morning at like 9 a.m. at BIM, and we used to do the open days for BIM for like all the new year, second year of college guys coming on to university, and they'd go to an open day at the uni and see what the talent is, and they'd get a little chat and have a band perform. And we'd always get up and do 2 songs. Most Saturdays we did that for quite a while, and nothing's more nerve-wracking than that. Like when you just rolled out of bed, you've had like one coffee, and then it's like, right, play these 2 pop rock songs. And everyone in the audience is a musician as well. And there's only like 50, 45, 50 people there. Yeah. And you can see everyone reacting to your every feel. Whereas at least with a bigger venue, you can't see anyone's, and you can just look out, I suppose.
I know what you mean. I think probably to this day, the most nerve-wracking gig for me was when I did a BIM end-of-term gig, and it was like the first one I'd done. And I remember thinking, if this goes well, it'd be great, I'll enjoy it. But if something goes wrong, everyone here, because it was first year as well, like everyone will remember, and then I'll never be asked to play with anyone that goes to this uni again. And the next 2 years, it'll just be like, what's the point? But I remember thinking it, I sort of said it to myself that way. I was like, if you fuck this up, you may as well just leave BIM, because no one will want you as a drummer, and then that'll be it. But I think that's it. Playing in front of musicians is way more scary than, because you're thinking, what's he thinking,
Yeah.
One thing I noticed watching a few of your Instagram videos was you were sometimes using, I think, what's called the traditional grip.
Yes, correct.
Something I've never done.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've done it, George.
No, not properly. Not yet.
Did you start learning with the traditional grip?
No. So we'll come back to Pat again. I was playing match for the best part of 20 years, I suppose. No, 10 or 12 years, sorry. Getting ahead. Started when I was 10. Yeah. And then, bit like George, you were saying, you get to a bit of a fork in the road, or you get stuck with your playing, and you just sort of like, I'm playing the same sort of things. I want to push on a bit. And, Pat, I went to Pat, and he was mentioning taking it back to basics. And I was also slightly interested in jazz at the time. So I had a couple of jazz lessons, and he was like, well, you don't have to kind of cross this bridge yet, but if you did want to look at traditional grip, then all your left hand is going to be doing for jazz is comping, which if anyone doesn't know what that is, it's just like they call it kind of complementary playing with your left hand for whatever the other musicians are playing in the band. And so that involves not doing much with your left hand, basically. And so I can put your left hand in that position, and because you're only going to be doing tap strokes with your left hand, it's a good place to start. So got my tap strokes pretty good, and was doing these kind of jazz lessons. And then it kind of just went from there, where, he was talking about pulling apart my playing and kind of starting again. And I was thinking, I really can't be bothered to do that with match grip because I've been playing match grip all my life. And I just wasn't that inspired to do that with a grip that I'd learned, like I said, all my life. So it was completely new. And I felt like, well, if it is something completely new and I'm starting again, it might revitalize kind of my practice and my playing, and I'll have a fresh kind of outlook. And then also I could then just translate what I was learning with my left hand kind of over to my right as well, and get kind of the best of both. And now I'm sort of retraining my left in match a bit, whereby, my right's good at all the stuff Pat showed me, and I'm sort of self-teaching myself, I suppose, a bit on the left hand, because I do still use match. I wouldn't say I always use traditional. It's good to have all techniques, really. You talk about kind of timpani grip, and then you've got your French and German, and American's meant to be somewhere in between. And yeah, so in answer to your question, no, it's only been about 3 or 4 years that I've played traditional grip. And yeah, credit to Pat, really. I just said to him, the end goal, well, I don't think I ever said to him, but in my head I was like, the end goal will be when I can play a gig from start to finish with traditional grip, and it doesn't feel like I'm playing traditional grip, if you know what I mean. And yeah, I kind of got there, and it was never a definitive moment because I was always dropping in and out of lessons with him. I was never committed to once every 2 weeks or once a week. It was always just as and when he had space, because I was gigging and teaching quite a lot and working and whatever, so I could never really fit in a full schedule with him. But yeah, it was sort of once a month I'll go back and see him, and then eventually it kind of arrived that, I just got to this point where I'd pick up a pair of sticks and I wouldn't be thinking about putting my hand in traditional grip. I would just pick up the sticks and it would kind of be there. It sounds weird, but it did eventually get to that point. And yeah, it's nice to be able to do a bit of both. And then it was funny how the Barbara gig came about, because then after I'd done all that study and done a bit more jazz and, worked on that side of my playing, which, by the way, pre-BIM, I was just a pop punk kid, like through and through. Name all the Blink-182 records and, Paramore stuff. That was me. I could not swing a cat, as my jazz teacher used to say. Yeah, it all came to a head, like Barbara were wanting to sound like old Beatles records, and, Beach Boys, and has loads of swing in it. And yeah, it was just funny how it just kind of all came to a head of like, oh, okay, I've been learning all of this stuff and that fits really nicely into this band. And then at the same time, I've got Noble Jacks that are, like I said, do-dak, do-ka-dak, do-ka-dak, and that's really fast semiquavers, accented semiquavers, and the traditional grip works perfectly for that. So yeah, it was just something I wanted to do because I just got, I guess, completely bored with my playing.
Is it something you are open to sort of teaching, like at an early age with your students?
I actually stay well away from it because I just feel like as a teacher I'm not there yet. And kids do ask me about it, that why do you put your hand in that position and not like this, blah 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 blah. But what Pat did was really open my eyes, in the sense that he had the next 2-3 years of my studying already mapped out in his head, and that is just testament to his education. Like, he's incredible with knowing what you're doing, not just the next lesson, but I mean, as far as I'm aware, I'm only guessing because he did get me to the point where I am today, but I imagine he knows what you'll be doing in a year's time. It's all mapped out. And George, we were saying he'll never tell you what the next lesson is.
Even though I ask at the end of every lesson, I say, when there's a new thing, I'm like, what's this for? He's like, I can't tell you.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
just get this down, and then when you're ready, you can go on to that kind of thing. And it's great because, with younger kids, if you do tell them what's coming up, chances are next lesson they'll come and do the thing that's coming up ahead of doing something that was meant to get you there. Then you end up chasing your tail because you've not learned A, but you're already on B, if that makes sense. So yeah, when students are starting to look at jazz, I try to just do that thing where this is the hand position, and if you really want to kind of go there, then here's a tap stroke. But in terms of actually just playing a backbeat in traditional grip, unless you've been shown the proper technique, you really can't do it. It sounds terrible. Like, from my experience before Pat showed me the correct, down and up strokes and full strokes with the traditional grip, If I tried to hit a snare drum in traditional grip and he hadn't shown me how to do it, it would sound absolutely crap. But yeah, I think in terms of showing students it now, at least the level I teach at, which some of them still get up to grade 6, 7, 8, wicked players. But I think back to when I was pre-uni or pre-BIM, would I have had the patience? And there are a very small number of students that ask the right questions that make me go, okay, maybe they're just on the cusp of like knowing about this stuff,
I was just going to move on a bit to your sort of current drum gear.
Yes.
What you're sort of playing at the moment.
I love drum gear. So I'm a bit of a vintage nerd. All of my stuff is old, which is great until it stops working. But I'm sat to the side of a Ludwig 1964 Super Classic, and it is called the downbeat version. So there's a downbeat and there's a Super Classic version. So the downbeat is 20, 12, and 14, whereas the Super Classic, which I have in exactly the same finish, that's 13, 22, and 16. So just bigger kind of Bonham Ringo stuff, whereas this is a tighter kit, which works exceptionally well for the tighter Barbara stuff, because it's really punchy, really snappy, but also really warm, and just gets out of the way of everything. Because go listen to Barbara. There's just so much going on. Loads going on. So for me as a drummer, it's very much my window of opportunity to fill is very small, and also it just means the decay on the drums just needs to be quite short and punchy. So there's that. I've also my touring kit is a Tama, which I actually want to get more people onto. So it's a Tama Superstar, I want to say, but basically it's a 1980s birch shell Tama, and made in Japan, and it's exactly the same as the Yamaha Recording Customs. So the old GAD kits and Weckel kits and Vinny kits. Honestly, the shells are identical. It would just cost you, at least it cost me, about $1,000 less. So if you want a real touring kit that's just built like a tank and will never break, Tama hardware, as we know, is all their stuff's built like tanks, but sounds good and doesn't break the bank, then that's my tip. Is it one of those Tamas? So that's my touring kit with Noble Jacks. And that is 22, 13, 16, and I do have a 12-inch tom as well, which I really want to put pinstripe heads on so that I sound like Steve Gadd, but I haven't done it yet.
What sort of heads do you use usually?
So vintage A's, Remo vintage A's on everything, and then clear ambassadors on the bottom. That's just worked, and a Power Stroke 3 on the kick, coated.
Nice.
I don't really like clear on the kick. Just for my sound, if I was doing a rock gig, definitely stick a clear on there. But for my gig, it's all warm tones. So that snare drums, got quite a few, but the one staring at me is a 400 Classic Ludwig 400, but it's a chrome over brass 1964. It's pre-serial, and someone's going to shoot me for this, but I believe pre-serial is up to 1964 or 3, and then when it got a serial number on the badge, we're post 63 or 64. Maybe you can tell me later. So I told you I'm a nerd with this stuff.
I love this. This is
the chrome over brass 400s are regarded as like the superior 400. Then you get the aluminium shell 400, which is the kind of one that everyone says is the most recorded snare drum ever. And then you get the acrylite, which was considered the student drum. So that's the history of the 400, I suppose. So got one of those, and I do have an aluminium 400, which is the one that gets gigged, because this is a beauty. This one, funny story actually. Me and Pat owned this one together as a little. He said I went to Mark Jeff's, which is Rusty Drums, north of London. Shout out to Mark. If you don't know Rusty Drums, you should go have a look at his man cave. It's ridiculous. He's got some beautiful drums up there, all vintage gear. And I said to Pat, I'm going up to Rusty. Do you want anything? And he just said, no, unless they've got a chrome over brass pre-serial 400. And they didn't. However, on my 2 days later, just browsing Facebook, lo and behold, on a buy, sell and trade drums page, here comes a chrome over brass Ludwig 400. And I messaged Pat and I just literally just sent him the link and I just said halves ? And he was just like, fuck you. Yeah, go on then. So that's why that's here.
How does that work? You get it one weekend and he gets it.
Yeah, well, it never leaves this room. It's one of those drums that you would list for sale, and it's like, these don't come around often. So yeah.
I want to change the conversation completely. We mentioned the park run briefly there, but I'm aware that you seriously do some fitness things. So I dabble. Well, there's dabbling, but then there's getting in the sea at this time of year.
Yeah.
For a swim, and Dean had told me about this, but how into your running and stuff like that you are, and I saw you did the Beachy Head marathon, which is mental. I kind of wanted to, because I don't feel like we've talked about it on the podcast before, and it would be great with a guest to talk about how much you think. It sounds obvious, but how much health is important to being a drummer, and is that why you're doing these marathons, or is it?
No, it wasn't at first. So I've always been sporty all my life. It was always alarm would go off early on a Saturday and a Sunday for football, and I played up to under 18s, just low level football, but it just meant that weekends was always filled with sport. And that was the two things I wanted to do in life, was either be a professional drummer or, if I'm obviously not going to be a pro footballer, but I wanted to maybe be a PE teacher or do physio kind of stuff, physiotherapy. And it just came about, just very randomly. And just started running, started doing park runs as we mentioned. And then a friend of mine was really taking it kind of one step further and doing 10 miles. Then we got into trail running. Then it got into half marathon territory. Then it got into, marathons. And I've since done an ultra marathon, which is, if anyone doesn't know, it's just anything over a marathon.
How far was it in miles?
So that was 32 miles, which is another 10K, so another 6 miles on top of a marathon. And that was going to it actually landed with COVID. It was going to be in Mallorca, so it wasn't going to be a flat marathon. It was in Palma, serious like mountains out there. So it's about 6,500, 7,000 feet of climbing. So if anyone's from Brighton, it's basically the seafront to Ditchling Beacon 7 times over the course of a marathon. So lots of hills. But I just got into it very randomly and just loved being outside. And I think it does cross over to drumming, but in a weird sense that I'm sat down all the time.
Yeah.
You're always hinged at your hips, like really badly. And I think the idea of stretching your legs and being outside, even if you're practicing here, you're on your own and you're in a very confined space. And to be out on the downs, running, once you get past that kind of 5K fitness, can be really enjoyable, but it's just getting your breathing to the level whereby you can kind of do it and it doesn't suck, essentially. Which I know some people might listen to that and just think, oh, it's all right for you, blah, blah, blah. But honestly, once you do just build up that stamina and your breathing comes down, and make sure you're running slowly, it will come around pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It wasn't related to drumming, but then I do also love yoga and, just general sport. And that has definitely crossed over into drumming and just making sure your posture is correct. And, you guys must know Dave Elitch. He's done a lot on this lately. And if you haven't checked out Dave Elitch's stuff, there's a bit on YouTube with Vic Firth that he's very briefly gone into it, but about seat height and just making sure your seat's above knee height. And then obviously that would correlate to your snare being high enough and your toms, and just making sure everything's in reaching distance. And I think, running and yoga, definitely did cross over into me playing better because I wasn't in certain weird positions, or I felt strong at my hips for a start, and my lower back. I always say to students not to kind of, how would you best describe it? But if you're sat at your drum kit, your lower back is like pushed inwards, so you've got a curvature in the spine, and all that will do is put weight into your pedals and into your hi-hat and bass drum, and mean that whenever you lift up any of those limbs, you're going to be falling to one side, which is going to in turn just mess up your groove. So just starting from kind of head, is in yoga it's head over heart, heart over pelvis, which just means like stack your head on your shoulders, then your heart is in front of your pelvis, and then also hinge, like tuck your hips in so that you're kind of engaging your core. And then that way you should be able to go right from left with your feet freely, not kind of like you're falling over because you've got no core there. So yeah, I think running did definitely help me realize that, because I started running, then did yoga, then got on the drums. And in yoga, it's all about posture and just having control of your core. And I realized actually behind the drum kit, I had none of that. And then, won't go on, but it definitely then stems into a 2-hour set. If I can run a half marathon, or a marathon for me is like under 4 hours, and then you go and play just a 2-hour headline set for Noble Jack stuff. I feel fit. It's great.
Final question, George.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Delivery companies then?
Yeah, go on.
I say it like I've done my homework. I was as taken aback by that as the same as Ben was. Oh God! So it's favourite, yeah.
Favourite. Well, also, if you've had any bad experiences, they're always good, to hear about.
The only bad experiences I've ever had is that I'm always reminded of the ones that didn't help you up the stairs in your kind of first floor flat. You're kind of looking at this bed, and then you're looking at them, and they're looking at you, and you're looking at them, just to be like, "Are you going to offer any assistance here?" And then, "It's above my pay grade, mate." And you're just like, "Right, okay, just me and you then, double bed." So that's all I can remember is having a terrible experience. But can I say Royal Mail? Can I just?
Yeah.
I think
big up Royal Mail.
Is that because of the strikes?
No.
Or?
Although credit to them, but I just never had a bad experience with Royal Mail. I feel like
I thought you were saying they're the worst. Sorry, I thought.
No.
Oh
No.
Definitely not.
Was the question the worst?
No, I've just lost track.
The original question is, who's your favourite delivery company?
Favourite? Yeah,
Royal Mail. Yeah,
Royal Mail, because
Royal Mail.
they're the OGs, right?
Mm.
Your stuff gets there on time, and you get a nice polite message, don't you? For me in a flat, it's always a nice good morning, it's Royal Mail. Mr. Lawrence.
They are the OGs. There's no one else.
Yeah.
Now there's loads. Every Hermes, same thing, but DPD. But
the only ones I can think of is DPD and Hermes. They won't carry anything for you. That's all. And I say that kind of almost through my girlfriend, when she's always like, "This drum's been delivered," or "This has been delivered," and they didn't help me upstairs.
Yeah.
And I see it in my flat, and the box is just in bits because she's just been, bless her, been dragging it up the stairs.
It almost sounds like, and obviously this I assume isn't the case, but you're like, it's being delivered 10 and 11. Like, I'll just pop out. It's like,
Oh, that's when I'm swimming or run. Yeah. Great time for a 10K.
Yeah, exactly. Sweet. Right.
Cool.
That's
All right,
for Royal Mail. Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us, Lawrie. Been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure, man. Thank you for having me. Seriously, it means a lot for you to ask. So,
mate,
thanks for your time. Thanks for coming on.
It's always intimidating when you see the names on the previous pods, and you're thinking, "What can I add to this?" But I guess it's
everyone's got something.
Exactly.
Got something to add.
It's
8 minutes of page 33. No one's done that yet. You know what I mean?
Feel free to cut. I will not be.
It'll just be that. We'll put it out, and you'll be like, "Oh, it's only 8 minutes long." Nice.
Sweet. We'll let you go, Lawrie. Thanks so much again for coming on.
Pleasure. Much
Take
love,
care.
guys. Take it easy.
Bye.
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 There we go.
There we go. That was our interview with Lawrie Miller.
Good lad.
Good lad. Fit lad.
Yeah, I mean, ultra marathons. No, thank you.
32 miles. That's a long way, isn't it?
Too long.
I mean, how far is that in distance from... I think you could get to Portsmouth in 32 miles from Brighton. Is that about right? Is that wrong?
Maybe.
Might be wrong.
Do you want me to look it up?
Let's look it up.
Right,
don't pause this. Don't edit any of this out.
No.
We're going to keep all of this in.
This is pure...
we could have saved this time for more talking to Lawrie, but no, we're going to Google Maps how far Brighton is to
well, I've just done to your door.
Yeah.
53 miles.
A bit more.
So you get a good way there.
Yeah. Maybe mine to Chichester?
Yeah, maybe.
Have a look. Let's have a look.
Oh, well, maybe you could get to just before Worthing.
Ah, okay.
35 miles from me, from the studio.
Oh, from you, okay.
Yeah.
That's quite a way.
Yeah, if you ever need to go to Worthing.
And also he great drummer.
Great drummer. Yeah.
Let's not define him just as a runner, but a great trait. Run and runner. Do that one day. Get some runners on the episode.
But good. Yeah, how's your we're a little bit into 2023 now.
How's it going?
Yeah.
I don't know. How is it going? I've got a job interview. I haven't told you. Oh, I have told you. We'll see how that goes. Watch this space for that, because that was my goal, wasn't it, last year? To just have something a bit more stable rather than being like, what am I doing this week? Don't know. Better text some people. Got any jobs? You know what I mean? Other than that, same old. Just, literally nothing to report. That's why we're having guests on.
We have nothing. We're doing nothing. I'm just sort of back in balls deep at the studio, really. Started work on an album this week, which is going to be a sort of nice ongoing project.
Yep.
There's some things that there's an album that came out actually on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve by Jack Child.
Oh yeah.
We talked about. I drummed on his song Boyfriend's House. Well, he's released a mixtape, sort of 12-ish songs. I drummed on about 4 or 5 of them. That came out. So
nice.
I'll put a link to that.
Yeah,
check it out. It's really good. There was even one song where, because I mastered the record as well, I said to Neil, who produced and mixed it, I'd forgotten I'd drummed on this song. And he said, and that one. And I was like, I just completely... There was one song I basically, even mastering it and listening to it, didn't remember that I drummed on it. But yeah, so go check that out.
Yeah. Where it clearly left a lasting impression on you.
I did it so long ago.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I did it in like August or something.
Yeah.
And then these things come out.
Yeah.
I think it was just so well mixed. It was like, that can't be me. It sounds too good, too polished. Yeah. So put a link to that. But yeah, just keep on going, mate.
Just keep on
going. Yeah.
January, worst month.
Yeah, it is.
For
it's
many
shit.
people.
It's fucking shit.
Yeah.
But hopefully our chats with these guests will keep you entertained on these cold, rainy winter months.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it
get in
better
touch.
myself.
Email, Instagram, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week with another guest in tow.
Oh, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Drum and Drummer. You can find us on Instagram at Drum and Drummer Podcast. And you can send us an email to drumanddrummerpod@gmail.com. Remember, just pick up the sticks and twat it.